Hi, I'm Dr. Andy Patalano. I have been teaching chemistry for about 5 to 8 years, depending on how long you count. I went to University of Redlands. I got my BS in chemistry there, and I went to UCR to get my PhD. Graduated from UCR in 2018.
What is your favorite thing about chemistry?
My favorite thing about chemistry is making things. I just always have loved the idea of making something out of its pieces. I was into Legos when I was a kid, and it was just eventually it clicked for me that you can figure out the periodic table and you can make anything that you want. So it's just a very creative discipline. People often think of it as sort of kind of fixated on the rules, and there are rules and you learn them, but it's just one little barrier between you and figuring out and making something new and creating new molecules.
Nice. What's the first thing you think before every time you lecture?
There's a song that I would always listen to in graduate school before I started my lectures, and it's like sort of this song by LCD Sound System called "Losing My Edge," and it would just be sort of thinking about all the things I've already said and heard and learned before, and trying to figure out how to make it interesting without sounding boring, just sort of giving me a little bit of extra energy to rethink what I've already said a million times and give it something fresh.
How did you decide to enter this field?
I really was not good at chemistry at all in high school, and I basically I didn't know that I would ever get into it until I started taking organic chemistry. And essentially it was just, I loved drawing pictures, and the structures in organic chemistry are just so fun to draw. Eventually, as soon as you get that connection of how the structure is related to how they behave and how they work, you begin to think like, well, what other structures could I make? How could I make something new? What can I develop? And I got into designing catalysts with my first lab advisor, who was just a great mentor, Dr. Henry Acquay.
If you were able to reflect on your journey and choose industry or academia, which and why?
It's hard. So ultimately, academia is just so pure. You get to teach people, give people the inspiration to love the topic and to really want to dig into it themselves. And industry is just so driven. I feel like academia just gives me a little bit more because I get to see people who struggled with chemistry like I did find something about it that they can enjoy, find something that they can use.
How do you keep a work-life balance?
I do the best I can. I just try to exercise. I do a lot of artwork, and I try to just take it day by day, figure out what needs to get done, and execute the list.
What are office hours?
Office hours are the most underutilized and most powerful resource that a student can have, because I will be happy to answer any questions that a student brings to me. Most of the time, students just don't take the time to ask. And if they would, they'd probably get a lot more help than they thought was even available.
Why should a student attend office hours?
A student should always attend office hours because your professor is available to you. You can ask them the things that you weren't sure about. As somebody who tutored a long time and tutors a lot for the different schools I work for, it's just, as a class, you can only help people across so many hurdles as a group. But as an individual, you can get over those individual hurdles that are just not quite clicking, and that will allow you to find that comfortable, fluid, knowledge of the topic that you're trying to acquire.
So, what's the best question you've received during office hours?
I can't think of the best question, but most of the time it's just related to any kind of research that the student might be interested in doing. I love questions that are just open-ended. I couldn't tell you any one in particular. I could tell you the most common question is, can I get more points on this assignment? Can I get an extension? And those are important questions too, all valuable, but the best question is usually asking me maybe why I got into chemistry in the first place, or them asking me how they could get into chemistry.
To be successful in chemistry, students should do what?
Students should draw everything and visualize everything that they can in chemistry. It's an extremely spatial topic. I don't know anybody who's gotten into Legos as a child or models or building, but it is all about the pieces. Or if you're into cooking, if you really love to cook and you think about all of the ingredients in a recipe, chemistry is just a great way to incorporate all those pieces together, think about what's doing what in that mixture.
How many hours would you recommend STEM students study outside of class?
It really depends on how how effective those hours are. When it comes to students who can really grind it out and work very intently without any distractions per week, if it's a semester-long class, 5 hours should be ample time to stay on course. If you're working in a different kind of setting, maybe like a 5-week class, like a 5-week semester, it's going to be a bit more, but it shouldn't be much more than 10 to 12 hours a week. You need to give yourself time to rest, to reflect, and spend some time away from the material.
How do students get a letter of recommendation?
Students get a letter of recommendation by showing me that they really want to do what they're trying to do. I guess it depends on where they're going, right? So for medical school, for nursing, I need to see in that student the will to do that particular vocation because they actually want to do it. So many students seem to be really tied up in what their family wants them to do and what kind of path that they're supposed to be on for that reason. And that is, I will write letters of recommendation for those folks. It's important to them and their identity and what their goals are, but I want to see in a good letter of recommendation I'm willing to write somebody who really, really wants what they're about to have me write a letter for.
What is your opinion on students who focus only on the grade and not care about learning the material?
There are students too. They need their own attention and their own time, and you need to make sure that you're giving them what they need to succeed. But ultimately, if that's what their conversations with me boil down to, I'll try to make sure I have as clear answers as possible, and I have a fair path for them to follow to try to get the grade that they're trying to get.
How can STEM students recover from burnout?
They can go outside, I think, or really they can find some kind of pursuit that gives them happiness on a daily basis. If it's gardening, if it's artwork, if it's exercise. I think exercise is really underrated as like a critical part of a daily routine for students.
What's the most valuable lesson you've learned from failing?
From failing? So the most powerful lesson I learned from failing was in high school when I very nearly failed chemistry myself. I actually had my dad, who was a teacher in another district, a science teacher at a high school about 10 miles away, had to leave class and come ask my chemistry teacher to let me turn in assignments to pass that class because I was just a lazy student. I didn't think that all the work was useful or helpful. I couldn't really see the connection in the pieces between one equation and one answer and one concept. And the most important thing about that time failing was it showed me a lot about how it takes time to see the whole picture, and you really have to work hard to visualize where you want to be and to go. That was what that failing moment taught me. It was also just how much your parents often care about you. That was a wild lesson, that's for sure.
What is your go-to song or podcast to listen to on your way to work?
Oh, well, without a doubt these days, it's Time Suck. It's definitely not safe for work, but it is a great deep dive on a lot of historical science and all kinds of topics by comedian Dan Cummins, who does a great job of really creating very educational content that you should listen to without kids in the car.
What is one of your hobbies or an activity you like to do in your free time?
I love to draw and make artwork. That's the main thing, but I really enjoy exercise, swimming, surfing, water polo was what I did in high school, but I kind of just, I kind of like to just do high intensity exercises. I go to a local CrossFit gym in Venice, and I like to spend time with my dog.
What's your favorite element in chemistry and why?
I have an attachment to fluorine because fluorine is easily the most evil of all the elements. The first people who discovered fluorine are known as the fluorine martyrs because they died in horrible ways because of how dangerous it was. They didn't really know how to deal with it when they first created it. The first few people who created it as a gas, they inhaled it and turned into hydrofluoric acid, and they suffered serious disfigurement or death after that. It's just the most evil of all the elements.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's a really rough one. I've been watching Avatar: The Last Airbender recently, and it's very hard to choose between the elements. But I think of all the elements that I would pick, or superpowers that I would pick related to chemistry, it'd be just the ability to manipulate matter, kind of like a Dr. Manhattan sort of thing.
Describe chemistry in one word.
Stuff. It's everything.
Describe,
You can't get away from it.
describe community college in one word.
Powerful. I find, or maybe focused. I find that students around here are a lot more focused than students at some four-year universities I've taught at. They really know what they want.
Describe STEM students in one word.
Distressed. Fun. I would say overall fun, though, is probably the final word.
Is EULER pronounced as Euler or Euler?
I say Euler. I prefer Euler.
Alright.
Euler is just, it just doesn't, the first syllable doesn't work. It just hurts.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Yeah, I do. So my favorite quote is "Imagination is more important than knowledge" by Albert Einstein.
Yeah.